Next up on Reel Talk, I'll be speaking with Gugun and Singh. Hey y'all, I'm Asante, and this is Reel Talk. In today's session, we're sitting down with Gugun and Singh. Gugun, for those who don't know you, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, your connection specifically to this, as well as anything that our viewers might find interesting.
That's broad. What they might find interesting. Yeah. I'm a nerd. I get into the small little things, so you never know what I might find interesting.
Oh, good.
Yeah, Gugun and Singh. Pronouns are he, him. I'm originally from Toronto, but I spent close to 20 years living in the United States. While I was there, I began my career as an actor, and really just being of service in a number of different ways. You hustle on student film sets and stuff, and you learn how to be of service, and you pick up skills along the way, producing skills and writing skills, and just finding a way to collaborate, make things happen, right? Mm-hmm. And so it was a little Wild West at the beginning, but then, I started kind of going through the theater path, but then learned that I could really translate skills, right? And so all of my work had been in the States. I'm a SAG member as well, so these matters like this are really important to me. Right? Because on both sides of the border, there's no distinction to me. You're going to find excellence on both sides of the border. Mm-hmm. And the proof of that is that we keep having world-class productions come to a place like Toronto and to continue to make stuff. So for me, I've done advocacy and campaigning for people before. And when I returned to Canada, it's coming on 9 years, that's when I had my introduction to ACTRA, really formally, started working on ACTRA contracts, became a full ACTRA member. Mm-hmm. And then continue to work on union advocacy, because that was I'm passionate about making conditions better for the next generation, and so that's why I wanted to get invested, and I was invited to serve in this way. So yeah, I'm energized and ready to bring that energy to the table.
Love it, great. Well, so with that being said, so I keep hearing about this AIR acronym.
Oh yeah.
As it pertains to the current IPA bargaining, can you kind of shed a little light on what that means specifically for bargaining?
It's a thing to just sort of keep in mind, right? I wouldn't say it's something for us to remember, like a mnemonic, right?
Yeah, right.
So if I remember AIR, it's just sort of for me, I want to remember that I got to be mindful about accessibility, right? But also artificial intelligence. That's going to become a major part of our discussions this year. Yes. It's on everyone's mind. It's on everyone's lips. We've already seen major action about that in the United States. There's a ton of action and activity happening with those companies, people who are exploring that technology, how they are educating those machine learning models. I mean, I'm very interested to learn where do they get the data? Yeah. And are they valuing it? And have they considered that data is historical and may not necessarily be as equitable as it ought to be, right? Yeah. That's a real consideration. If you're using historical information, it'll contain bias, because it's human information. So, that's the thing that's important. That's the A, right? Then you've got an issue of the I. We need to talk about inclusion. Who are we bringing to the table? Who are we offering opportunities to? But also, actors are precarious workers, right? We're the original workers. It's literally in our name, right? We are laborers. And so making sure that opportunity can be available to everybody, right? And making sure that you're able to make your dollar stretch. Every single actor I know usually has more than one job. Yeah. Right? And some of them are very fortunate, but they remember their early days where, they had to make ends meet. And, our dollar doesn't go as far as it used to. So inflation is another I that we keep in mind with the I of AIR. And then R, let's talk about residuals. Let's talk about respect.
Nice. Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Residuals, making sure that our labor, it's not just on the day. We should be benefiting every time it gets broadcast. And residuals are a very, very important thing. It was the basis of what I felt was a very stable carriage model that existed in the States when they created the original model for residuals, where you needed you would do some work, but then you'd get an additional payment for each additional broadcast. Right? Share in that creative bounty. Right?
Exactly, right.
And then respect, right? Respect is so important, because if you can't show up in a place and feel safe and supported, how are you going to deliver your best work?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so like now it's a matter of if you've been put in a position where you have to do some really sensitive work, like the advent of intimacy coordinators, I think is a wonderful thing.
It's huge.
And it would be wonderful that we can advocate for more of our members who have begun to undertake that work, and they have a place where they can bring that to bear on an ACTRA set, right? Because not only are we advocating for our members, we advocate for every person on that set. It's an ACTRA set, and especially from all of our guests that come across the border. My fellow SAG members who frankly, they love working here because they get taken really well. They're really well taken care of, you know. And we have their back, and we make sure that their conditions are at, if not better than, what they might be receiving down in the States.
Well, I would hope so. You know, I mean, obviously that's a big market for us as well, and I love the idea of you know, bringing more of these intimacy coordinators onto set, setting that precedent for protection and safety and respect all around the set.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think that's fantastic. Yeah.
Being proactive about accessibility riders is a relatively new thing, right? Intimacy riders also. Those have existed for a while, but being proactive about how can we anticipate the needs of a particular performer, and so that we are then able to make sure that is not a barrier. Literally a barrier. If you've done all this work to work with, let's say, a performer who uses a wheelchair, but you haven't gone to the trouble of making sure that the place you're actually shooting is barrier-free, right? You want them to do their work, but you haven't actually created a respectful environment for them, because this is a challenge that they're now confronting, right? The world is not necessarily equitable, and if you want someone's best work, set them up for success.
100%.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, okay. So, given all that, just maybe some more specifics on the exact the bargaining timeline and exactly who we're bargaining with. So, when are we bargaining? Who are we bargaining with? Okay.
So, ACTRA is they're the union of record for performers and recorded media in Canada, right? While we have other unions whose members may come to work here, again, as I said, every set in Canada, every union set is an ACTRA set, okay? And we cover those performers. Now, our agreements are with the CMPA, the Canadian Media Producers Association, right?
Yes, thank you.
Now, there is a little bit of distinction there. In BC, things are slightly different. They have something called the BCMPA, which is their own production agreement. But what we come to the table to bargain and improve the terms on is the IPA, the Independent Production Agreement, right? Now, there are different stakeholders in this. You may have heard of the AMPTP.
Correct,
right? Yes. That's the main American trade group that represents most of the large interests.
And just a quick acronym check there for our viewers.
I'm trying to remember. It's the Alliance of Motion Picture and Television Producers. I think, I hope that's right. Yeah,
nailed it.
Thanks. But they are, they're the main group that we were hearing about in the media last year. That is the group that SAG was negotiating with directly, right? That's the group that the WGA was negotiating with. They are the main group that then goes sort of through down the line of the various unions that are involved with broadcast and media production, right? What has been added to their sort of ecosystem now are the streaming groups, you know? So it didn't used to, Disney didn't used to be a major streaming entity, but, was a major legacy producer of film and television. And now you've got Netflix in the mix, you've got Prime, you've got Apple, because they have now entered into the sphere and changed the game, right? And in a very interesting way. And I think they've learned from and tried to pull the best from, but also, they've set a pattern that the other larger legacy companies have started to follow as well, pay attention to, and it all comes down to the bottom line, you know. But the bottom line, ultimately, if you're not, you'll get what you pay for. And if you're trying to make sure you spend as little money as possible, you can't be surprised if you are having issues with being able to market something later on or having resonance with your audience, right? Put your money where your mouth is. Put your money where your value is. And and that's what I really do hope that they will understand when they come to the table, the CMPA, right? Because that's who we deal with. But we also understand that the interests are shared, and we have frank conversations. We want to be great to work with. That's the main thing that I want people to know.
Yeah.
It's I've heard that slogan at ACTRA before. Be great to work with, but also to let you know that we will take on what is worth fighting over, right? And and to let people know that we will go to the mat on that, and that's what we have to do for the membership.
Amazing. Now, the timeline.
Oh, right, timeline
for bargaining.
Right.
Have we started or?
No, we have. So what has happened already is we've sort of set up how we would like our end to work.
Okay.
Right? Which means that there's a ton of consultation that happens with members in every branch of ACTRA across the country. They've had focus groups, and we've gathered information from people who work in various categories. Right.
Great. Okay.
We have our incredible background community, right?
Yeah.
We have the folks who are working in voiceover. We have the folks who are working in the stunt community. Our principal performers. We also, I think, to keep in mind, principal performers also encompass sort of high-profile performers, right?
Yeah.
Because a principal performer like you or I, who are like journeyman performers, who get a job and we go to set and we let our rep, if we have one, negotiate whatever terms we can. That's not the same thing for, let's say, someone like Enrico Colantoni, right? Who is a well-known commodity within the Canadian market, has had success in the United States and internationally. Someone like Enrico, who his deal would be different, right? But it all comes down to making sure we have equitable terms, no matter what category or class of performer that you're in, right? We are all equal members, right? And we bring that equity forward. And so we've had these consultations at all levels. We've fed that all into what we call a W&W, a wages and working conditions consultation.
Okay.
Now, all major unions usually do this with their membership. They gather that information and they sort through it, they prioritize it, and then they have a trusted team, their bargaining team, right, or their bargaining committee. They come forward and we start to talk through each of these things. Yeah. And we start talking about where things are in time. Is this the time for a particular proposal? Is this something that we haven't achieved in the past? What is the likelihood of achieving such a thing? We are the ones who have those deep, tough conversations.
It's a lot to weigh.
Indeed.
Yeah.
And so what I would say is there was some exhaustive work for this particular round of bargaining. I mean, as we talked about before, AI has been on everyone's lips, right? How are we engaging with machine technology? I think the understanding is we're not afraid of the technology. We just want it to be responsibly used. We want guardrails that will dissuade, to discourage misuse, right? And to make sure that it is not there to replace human labor, because without that, what do you have? It's just empty.
Well, that's it.
And so our timeline now, we are through wages and working conditions. I believe it's within another few days, we're going to be exchanging proposals. And in November and December, we will have some intensive sessions face-to-face with the CMPA in Montreal and Toronto.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
But we're really hoping that we have a meeting of the minds. We understand we're all working. We all want this industry to succeed.
Yeah.
Right?
Of course.
So we really do hope that they will also see that light. We can find common ground and understand these are issues that need to be hashed out, because it's a negotiation. Will everyone get everything they want? Probably not. But if we're not seeing eye to eye, we also have to be serious about what it means as a union to take collective action.
Yes.
Right? And I think we need to be fearless and support one another, because that is how you end up really achieving change. If we cannot have agreement at the boardroom, then maybe then we've also got the option of the streets.
Right. All right. Cool. Very, very cool. So to move into something a little bit more, I think, relatable, especially for a bulk of our audience. Yeah. And I think these will help tee up some of the bargaining proposals and some of the issues that are at hand. People, it's always interesting, I think, when you tell someone you're an actor. There's always so many questions, right? There's so many questions. We have quite a mysterious profession, I would say, to a lot of people.
People have an idea.
They have an idea, right?
I'm glad you brought that up, because when you say actor to someone, they have an idea of an actor. Yeah. And they have the image of an actor that has been given to them, which usually is someone living in a sunny place, who is probably has a very like idealized body, likely sitting by a pool, and in the lap of luxury, right? And getting to pick and choose opportunities, right? The level of privilege and sort of the level of privilege that's in that image, and that was involved in that image becoming inscribed for people, is something I think is really, I guess at best it can inspire people.
Yeah, maybe
but that is not the day to day.
Yeah.
Actors are laborers, much more in common with a plumber or a construction worker, right? A tradesperson, right?
Yes.
There's a reason that it's the SAG, it's the Screen Actors Guild, right?
There you go.
And so it's in this that it's a trade. It is very much a commonplace workaday thing. The average income of someone in as an ACTRA member, the mean income, right?
Yeah.
If you in the middle, somewhere between $12,000 to $16,000. That's not what one would call like a livable income.
Especially those of us living in Toronto,
Certainly.
we know that's maybe
so.
a
Like
month,
I
2
said,
months.
right? Inflation and stretching that dollar.
Yeah.
But the perception of who an actor is, right? Who is diligently going out and working hard to make sure that they can sustain their life and offer what they have to offer. Like that's an interesting thing. I want people. We're going to work hard to make sure that they understand that you're dealing with a worker.
No.
You're not dealing with anybody who's fancy or that the perception of it, right? Because I've heard the term also, or you're like a method actor.
Oh gosh.
I'm like, hey, and like nothing against folks who have practiced the method or have studied that.
Right,
A lot of wonderful actors have come through that tradition. But why is it that you often only ever hear someone describing that when the behavior is questionable? Right? To me, it's like
I think it's kind of like a buzzword that people hear and they think, "Oh, method acting. That must be." I'm going to sound smart if I tell this actor I know about method acting.
Yeah, and I appreciate there's an interest.
Yes, of course, always.
But also then it's like no, there are all sorts of actors. Right? There are actors who don't love talking at all.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Who just do everything through movement, and find different ways to operate. But the key thing is that I want to draw attention to the fact that actors are workers. Actors are laborers.
Yes.
And we are just like you and I. We're like your neighbor. Right? And we just want to have a better life for ourselves and our families.
Of course.
So that's a key thing.
I agree. Well, I love the term. I've heard it brought up before, the artistic working class.
Indeed.
And I've really adhered to that. And that's what I try to explain to people when they start asking some of these questions about actors.
Yeah.
Because
the work's not guaranteed.
It is absolutely not.
That's what's different also in a union sphere. In historically, there would be a place where a certain amount of labor was happening. And the labor would get together and realize we provide this work. This is our labor. In this space, we want to make sure our conditions are good in the space and that we are respected for the labor we're offering. As independent contractors and precarious arts workers, we don't actually have a specific space, right?
No.
We don't have a guaranteed quantity of work.
That shop floor is not there, right?
Yeah, and so it's like understanding that, but the value of the work we know is there because professional actors keep getting invited in. Yeah. Right. Yeah. So it's a slightly different conversation, but making sure you understand that the labor has value, the human labor has value.
Yes, exactly.
Is a very, very key thing that we are going to make sure the message will be loud and clear.
Yes, and I think what I love about that too is like it's the labor has value from top to bottom. We're not just talking about your stars here. We're talking about everybody that contributes on that set. You know, like you say, from those principal actors down to the one-liners to the background to the people.
I wouldn't even say it's down to. I would say it's more.
Across.
It's all flat.
Yeah,
it's across.
Yeah.
It's various categories and regions, right?
Yes.
Because one day I could be on a set working as a background actor, and they could on that same set on a day elevate me to be in an actor role with a couple of lines.
Exactly. Yeah.
And they might like what I did, and next season you see me back at the same thing. Maybe I've been in the background, and now they've elevated me to a principal. But I'm a principal for that episode. Yeah. Right. But there's a way within that you can be. That you can operate at whatever level you need to, even within a single show, a single ecosystem.
That's right.
And so, but there's an equity, there's an equality, no matter what level of ACTRA member you are, because there is also apprentices, there's ACTRA additional background performers, right? And there are those who would like to join this union, you know? And with such an international city as well, we've also discovered that the world lives in this city and is well represented in this city, and it's great to see the membership, even within our jurisdiction, get more diverse.
Yes.
Right? Because a lot of these places have had successful labor unions, and they're very keen to join a union where they can continue to offer what they feel they have to offer, right? So the sentiment of joining ACTRA remains actually very strong. It's just finding the ways to join and sustain yourself.
Well, okay. So for some of our audience members who may not be so clear, what are currently some of the ways that you can join ACTRA? Like, what are the ways in?
The ways in typically would be you're working as a background performer. You need to get enough days on set, right? And then you make an application, and you steadily work up. The other way I would say is that you become you get a speaking role. Right, which is a full credit, right, and then you get 3 credits, and that gets you full eligibility to join the union, right? Cool. Now, as a SAG member, right, they have a one and done system. I actually don't think that's correct. It's actually a misnomer. You become Taft-Hartley'd. That's the term. It's literally the Taft-Hartley Act. It's a federal bit of legislation there where if you land a job and there are union members up for it, and you get that job. You are now eligible to join the union. You are Taft-Hartley'd, as they say. Okay. And so, but you don't have to fully join right away. You just become eligible. Your second credit, you have 30 days to work as much as you want, right? Without any additional stuff. You could, even if you book a major thing, you have 30 days where there's no other inquiry or 30 days free, basically. Yeah. But after your OK 30 is done, you become a must join. Okay. Your third credit for SAG, you don't get to do additional access. You don't have more access to SAG work unless you join the union. Okay. Right? And so there's technically 3 there, but you could, as of that Taft-Hartley, you could pay the money and join the union at that moment, right? And there are some members here who feel like maybe we should look at that model.
Yeah, I was going to say, interesting to see the comparison between the two.
We want to make sure we can serve the membership. Yeah, right? And I think it's always good to be on the pulse of that and to see what is best for our union, right? And our jurisdictions. Always, yeah. So I think we're always open to those conversations and seeing, finding a timely time to do it. There are a lot of conversations happening right now.
I can imagine. So I think we've talked about this already, but I think it warrants even more coverage because it is a big conversation. Yeah. AI.
Okay, we can go back there.
Yeah, I mean, you've brought it up. Clearly, you're quite knowledgeable, and I think it's something, if I'm to be frank, is striking a lot of fear into a lot of workers, not just in acting, but really across the board. And, what, from your perspective, what has AI already done in the industry?
All right, so how do I address this? So we can talk about the machine learning. I actually don't like calling it AI.
Neither do I. Yeah.
I've called it other things. Machine learning seems to be the industry cover. It covers everything, right? Yeah. To use a tool set, right? Yeah. In order to help you achieve a thing, right? Yes. There's no origination of stuff. Exactly. But it can very much seem like it's origination, right? And then people are implementing other elements to it. And so it is artificial. Yeah. I don't know if I necessarily am comfortable calling it intelligence. The other end of the spectrum is that people have outright started calling it plagiarism technology.
Well, yeah. I like augmented. Augmented.
I wouldn't even go there. Oh, yeah? Because keep in mind, how did you arrive at training a machine learning system? Well, or is the data you used? How did you achieve it? Most companies can't justify the data they use to train their machine. Yeah, maybe internally, whatever internal data they use, but that only exists within their ecosystem, right? Once you get outside and need greater application, where are you pulling that data from and how did you value it? And did you responsibly shepherd that data? All of that to say, I absolutely get the fear. Yeah. Because it is a human thing. It has happened before. Sabotage is literally an act of taking your shoe, a sabo, and throwing it into a machine. That's where the word comes from.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
And so because that's what happened. The Luddites were a group of people who didn't like that technology was replacing them. And they would say, we are anti-technology. We will smash the machines. But that's standing in the way of progress. Yeah. There will always be innovation.
Of course,
right? Yeah. And it's being responsible with the technology, right? We had There were cars for many, many years, but they didn't have seatbelts. And Volvo came up with a seatbelt system and did not patent it. They said, we will give this away freely because it's better for the greater good, right? Yes. So this is what we're asking for. We're talking about seatbelts now. We're talking about, yes, this is technology. Yes, it could help us do wonderful things, but we want you to be responsible with it.
Yeah.
Okay. So what, along with this, I would say is it's about respect and it's about residuals, because how do you now get compensated in this day and age, right?
Well, that's it,
where there
right?
aren't residuals being paid. There's a lot of buyouts happening, even though residuals are supposed to be calculated. You know, in Canada we have the you get advance, you get prepayment, right? Yeah. But when does that kick in? To me, I'm like, we should be getting paid on a much more regular basis. The streaming advent has kind of like really put the pressure on that.
Well, yes.
Right, and for me, that's only going to get more and more used when you've got synthetically manipulated algorithms, right, which decide how to prioritize something when it shows you whatever is coming through your stream, whatever's through your, looking at your preferences, right? If I talk about a thing next to my phone, within 10 minutes, I'm going to get an ad on my Instagram about like that thing, right? Yeah. So I feel right now with artificial intelligence, it needs to be responsibly shepherded. We're not saying no to it. Yeah. We're saying, here's the way that we can work with you on this so that you don't lose the spark of what makes people actually be invested in this product in the first place. We want to see it flourish, but in a way that actually is in partnership, in a handshake. So the fear is real because we have already seen SAG really only accomplished practically compensation for their members. Right? They're now going back. And we're hearing about additional riders being put forth, scanning riders, and how do they protect their members? There was legislation that just got passed regarding digital doubles, people who have passed away, and the rights regarding usage of those images, right, and the estates. To me, that's a good step, right? We are looking to protect our entire membership first and foremost. Compensation, control, and consent. Those 3 points. Compensation, control, and consent. Because I don't want if I'm a vegan, I don't want my image, my likeness associated with a meatpacking company, right? Right. And I should be compensated fairly for the labor that I've put forth there, right? And if they needed to scan me to do something that may be more unsafe within a thing, maybe if it's responsibly handled, that's okay. And I need to be able to revoke my consent when it's something that I don't want, right? Those 3 elements, it forms a little tripod. Yeah. SAG, I feel, also wanted these things. They only achieved the compensation, and they had a strike to contend with. It was tough. Yeah, there's a lot. Members being out of work. There's a lot, yes. And we haven't really seen a recovery from that. The writers, in addition, too, who really set a great pattern, right? They were incredible with their communication with their membership, right? That we could learn from that. And I really do hope we will, because we want to make sure our membership knows you're being fought for. And there's a lot of eyes in our conversation happening right now. I would say worldwide. There are a lot of eyes happening, watching what we're doing, because we want to build on the successes that have happened. And AI is right there at the forefront, but also we don't want to lose sight of other very small, important things like respectful treatment. Can I be stuck on a flight and flown halfway around the world and that immediately have to go right to work? Right. You know what? Maybe I even want to, but you got to ask me. Yeah. Right. Don't make me do a thing that could ultimately hurt your final product. Yeah. You know.
Of course. Of course. It's all setting up for success.
It's a continuum. Yeah. It's a continuum. Yeah. AI is chief. But you have to take these other factors into account as well.
Wonderful. That's great. Well, Gugun, thank you so much. I feel like that was incredibly informative for a lot of us. Are there any final thoughts, final comments that you'd like to leave us with today?
I guess I would say showing up is key. Showing up is key. Be curious about what we're doing, because nobody is showing to we want to be leaving this process with something better than what we came in with.
Amen to that.
And that we want this to be better, not just for ACTRA members, but to improve the ecosystem for all performers across the country. In places where we don't have a union, you immediately see the floor. Engagers can have an opportunity. Maybe I don't want to say that they necessarily would, but your bottom line really matters.
Yes.
And when the money starts to really fall away, and you have to make this thing work.
Yeah.
You know, it can really start to impact you, and it ought to be done responsibly, right? In partnership. And that doesn't mean that doesn't mean that respect needs to fall away, right?
Yes, of course.
Because then you're going to be getting someone's best work.
Well,
to
that's,
me,
if anything,
that's
it
what I
should
mean.
be. Yeah.
Like, be ready to be invested and to connect with fellow members, because you're not alone in this.
Great.
You're not alone in this.
Great,
You have
yes.
your union, which is going to show up and advocate for you. You have other people who are very interested in making sure that this ecosystem continues to be sustainable and profitable and supportive of Canadian screen talent, screen and both, you know, recorded media talent.
Yeah.
Right, and that we will find responsible ways to engage with technology, so that we are so that we can be ready to do the content of the future.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And that it looks like the world to come, because I'm very excited to see because it's going to look like a rainbow.
Yeah.
Right. It'll look. Everyone's going to be invited, because that's the table we're building.
That's beautiful. Well, I'll tell you, I feel a little bit more inspired myself. So,
good,
Gugun,
yeah.
thank you so much, man.
Of course, man.
Always
My pleasure.
great. And thank you all so much for tuning in. Hope you picked up a little something. There's going to be more of these rolling out. So stay tuned. And we thank you once again. My name is Asante. This is Real Talk.